Thank you very much for being here, guys. It's always nice to see you. And I believe it's not a secret that this is our session number 13. So it's a Kabbalistic number, and well, let's hope for the best for this session. As we said before, this pretty much we have covered 75% of the course, and we are close to finish the course, I believe, in the best spirit possible. So obviously, we cannot finish the course without testing what we learned related to the C1 Advanced. That's why the remaining sessions, or at least the two next sessions, will be devoted to having mocks. And I mean full mocks of the different papers of the exam, which of course will give you an idea of where you are in terms of techniques, in terms of, time management, and obviously your abilities towards the exam. Now, in the following minutes, we are going to cover the last three activities that we have for the exam, which are basically sorry, I forgot the report, the review, just the review, and list reading part 1 and use of English part 2, which, as I told you at the beginning of the course, don't have a fixed technique because, as we said before, they are basically knowledge part of the exam. Either you know the answer, or you don't know the answer. There is not let's say a trick or something that we could do like in other parts of the reading or just reading exam. But anyway, it's going to be a good time to practice about this. Now, in the meantime, let me share my screen with you so that I can show you what we are going to start doing in the following minutes. Let me resize this. Let me make this bigger anyway. Okay. Now, obviously, before starting with our session, I have some comments to make about your reports. That I have to say that I am quite happy with the results, but there are still some things that we need to address in terms of, especially organization and language. Okay, first of all, this is the weekly plan. You can find this and the remaining schedule for the weeks to come at the virtual. You will see that's pretty much, as I said, mocks. I am going to give you the kind of mocks that we're going to do next week towards the end of the class. And today, as we said before, as I said, okay, that's nice. Okay, nice, Lucila. Today, we're going to continue practicing with the speaking part 4. I mean, we started this practice last class. Today, we are going to make it a little bit more, let's say, demanding. For this, I'm going to, hopefully, if we have 9 persons in here, I'm going to ask you to get in groups of 3 so that one of you can be the examiner or the interlocutor and the other 2 can actually practice. And then you can swap, let's say, positions. You can swap, let's say, roles, so that all of you can practice and all of you can get some kind of feedback. Now, as I said some minutes ago, today we're going to concentrate on reading part 1, the multiple choice clause, then the use of English, which is the open clause, and finally, we are going to start writing or checking the final text type, which is the review. That's what we are going to do in the following minutes. Now, about your reports. Now, the ones who were able to send the reports did a good job, but I have to comment 2 things. Number 1, in terms of language. Remember, some of you, start the report very well. You start with a proper title, with proper headings. You introduce the topics very well. The introduction was the best part because, and I believe the core sentence has a lot to do with that because you are quite able to include all the objectives of the report, and that's something that stands out completely. That's quite nice. Now, you also, most of you give subtitles or headings to the different sections of the report, which is okay. But this is where comes the problem. In the final paragraph, let's say the recommendations or the suggestions, because most of you tend to give the suggestions using, as I said before, the first person. And that is something that you cannot do in a report. Remember, a report is something neutral. So a report is neutral by nature. So you cannot, let's say, use I believe, or I think, or it is my idea. even though it could be your idea, you need to find a way to express it, let's say, in a more neutral way, so that you actually meet the expectations of a report. Remember, you are writing this report not to, let's say, to convince anyone, but to inform someone, which could be your boss, which could be, I mean, a person in charge, you never know. But using I, let's say, kills the mood of the report. So try to avoid that. And actually, that happened at the end of the report. Let's put it in this way. 3 of the 4 paragraphs that most of you wrote were okay, but the last paragraph was the problem, which also takes me to the second thing that I would like to address with you, which is language. Most of you were able to use proper language for the report, but the problem is that you didn't use reported speech or the passive voices. Remember, if we are aiming to have a neutral report, the best way to do so is by trying to include these 2, let's say, grammatical points, which by nature are impersonal. So most of you wrote the report, as I said, correctly, but you don't even try to include that. Maybe 1 or 2 persons, to be honest, I don't remember who, but try please to include these for the future report that you can write. Okay, so in terms of organization and content, you're doing fine. Thank you, Laura, for the thumbs up. In terms of, let's say, language, you are doing, let's say, okay, because you are writing it correctly, but please do try to include these 2 grammatical points I have mentioned. And in terms of communicative achievement, please do not include first person singular. So in other words, forget about you, forget about I, just include it in a neutral way. I don't know if there are some questions about the reports before starting the session with the speaking practice. Very much no. Okay, just in case, Laura, I checked your proposals, which were quite, I mean, honestly, quite nice. Thank you very much for the effort of sending them. I also checked your, I believe it was your report. Thank you very much. I mean, thank you for that. I mean, I remember one more thing. I mean, even though you include, let's say, statistics in the report, which is something I recommend, try not to exaggerate in the amount of statistics. Because, I mean, some of you put statistics in every single, let's say, in every single paragraph. And even though it's not something incorrect, I believe stating the source of your data in paragraph 1 is more than enough. Unless you want to express that you found the data in different sources, which is something completely valid, try not to change the sources in every single paragraph, because 1, it's a little confusing, and 2, obviously because of the amount of words, it is going to diminish the time, the number of words that you can have to actually express your thoughts. Remember, the most important thing is how you express your ideas, not the actual, let's say, data, or the actual source of your data. Because remember, we are just making this up. So this is not something that, let's say, we are going to present, I mean, in real life to, I mean, to a scientific board or to a group of teachers or anything else. So don't overcomplicate yourself with the data or with the sources. I mean, just stating the sources in the first paragraph or the intro, as most of you did, it's pretty much okay. So if there are no more questions about the reports, so that I would just close the topic. Just make sure not to confuse reports and proposals, because in, let's say, in layout, they are basically the same. And as I said before, towards the end of the session, we are gonna devote ourselves to the last topic, or the writing task, which is the review. Now, let's go to speaking part 4. As I said, this is pretty much a reminder. So remember that in this part 4, it's the follow-up of part 3. And remember that it's the longest part of the exam, which takes 5 minutes. Now, before going to the practice, I would like to listen to some comments about their recommendations for part 4. So I would like you to imagine this. Let's suppose that you have a friend who's going to take the speaking exam, and this friend knows that you took a course. I mean, even though the problem of the course was the teacher gave you some recommendations towards part 4. So what can you tell your friend? I mean, what recommendations can you tell your friend about speaking part 4 in terms of the C1 advanced? I mean, any thoughts? I mean, what can you recommend your friend? I mean, he or she's asking for your help, for your advice. So what would you tell him, or tell him or tell her? To stay silent. What would you say?
First, open the conversation with a fixed expression.
Okay, fantastic. For example?
May I go first?
Okay, great, fantastic. Yeah.
Would it be okay if I start?
Fantastic, Laura. And what if the other person starts a conversation with a fixed expression? What would you do? Panic?
No, just answer if they're asking to use something.
How do you answer?
Be my guest.
Okay, using another fixed expression.
Yes.
So obviously it is advisable for us to start the conversation, to open up the conversation. But if our candidate, let's call it friend, if our friend starts the conversation by him or herself, then don't be afraid, just follow the lead. I mean, maybe in the next question, you might jump in first. And actually it's a matter of, let's say, turn taking, but anyway, expect the unexpected, especially in part 4. Okay, we open the conversation. What else? What else can you say? So Laura gave me a valid, let's say, starting point. What else would you say? Okay. So before you start with the comments, let's remember the layout of the activity. The speaking examiner pretty much is going to ask the first candidate a question, and then it's going to ask for the opinion of the second candidate related to that particular question. Then he's going to swap the layout, because the second person is going to answer the question, while the first candidate is going to answer or give his or her opinion. And after that, you're going to engage yourself into discussion. That's why this is called a discussion. Now, don't forget this. The idea behind this part of the speaking test is discussion. These are not monologues. And that's something that happened last week, and that's something I wouldn't like to see when you get to practice this week. Last week, when I came into the breakout rooms, you had monologues, and the idea is not to have monologues. Perhaps you could have a sort of monologue in the first 2 questions, because if the examiner, set the question to you or ask you the question directly, then, well, it's actually, somehow a monologue. But if they ask you discuss, then don't try to have the discussion in the sort of monologue. So actually try to have the discussion with you. Okay, anything else besides starting with a fixed expression? Yes, guys, just in case. If you don't speak now, you're gonna speak in the practice. So let's warm up a little bit, okay? So remember also, as you can see in the screen, that the interactive communication and discourse management is pretty much evaluated in here. So don't try to, even though you have to take into consideration the pronunciation, lexical resource, and grammatical resource, the main point where you have to put your attention on is discourse management, and especially interactive communication. That's pretty much what we have to say about this. Now let's go over this very quickly. Now, something that you have to remember also is to control your time. For the first question that you have to answer, aim your answer to be, 20 to 25 seconds, 30 seconds stops. Then for the opinion, the same 25 seconds, 30 seconds stops. And for each question, try to have the conversation in between 1 minute. So try to control the time. Even if your partner is not able to control the time or he has problems controlling the time, you, let's say, put the ground clearly and you, let's say, manage the conversation towards you can have the proper timing. And as last but not least, remember that this is not about winning the argument. I mean, this is not Trump versus Biden. No, you are not one. You don't want to win the argument like that. This is not a debate. This is just a conversation. So even though you might disagree with what your partner say, well, try to show your disagreement in a way that you can show your language, but don't take it personal. Just carry on with the exam. Don't get, let's say, carried out by the frustration, let's say it in a way. But don't forget that the more you speak without your partner, the less you're going to mark in interactive communication. So try to work with your partner towards the proper outcome of the exam. Okay, so having said this, I'm going to stop my sharing and I'm going to ask you please to, since we are 9 and yes, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, fantastic. I'm going to ask you please to go in groups of 3. I'm going to show you my screen a little bit so that to show you where I need you to go at UD Virtual. In the meantime, please go to UD Virtual because in there you're going to find the same practice or the same handout we had last session, which is related to speaking part 4. Please go to the section further materials. And in the section further materials, you are going to find the exact same activities, the exact same, let's say, questions that you have last class. Obviously, you were not able to finish them all. So I'm going to ask you, please, let's put it in here. I'm going to ask you to go to the ones that you haven't worked so far and get to work them in the next 15 minutes. That's the time that you're going to have. And as you can see, towards the end, I have also included some more that you can use in case you have used all of the above, which I don't think that happened. But anyway, you have more, let's say, exam questions at your disposal so that you can practice this particular section of the exam. Okay, before going to the breakout rooms, any questions about part 4? Any doubts that you may have related to the organization of the task, or maybe to the kind of some kind of language that you may use. Okay. Someone was telling me about timing. Remember, the speaking examiner must finish the exam in no more than 15 minutes. So, okay, 15 minutes, 10 seconds, perhaps 12 seconds, but the examiner is not going to finish the exam in 13 or 14 minutes because that's not advisable. So be ready to speak a lot. So if the examiner sees that he's not, compiling with the time, he's gonna ask you one more question. So expect to receive at least 4 questions in this particular part, 1 question for each one of you, and then 2 or perhaps 3 questions for a discussion, but aim for that and don't feel anxious about this. Don't say, okay, he's asking me more questions because I'm not doing well. That is not the case. If the examiner is asking you one more question, it's because the examiner needs to comply with the timing. Okay, so don't panic about that because I've heard that comment a lot. Okay, so please go to the virtual. I hope you have the activity ready. And remember, one of you is going to be the examiner. That person is going to ask the question to the 2 candidates. He's going to, let's say, time the activity. Remember, 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you're going to get 1 minute of feedback perhaps, and then you swap so that everyone can have the chance to participate and receive some feedback. Okay, so let me break out the rooms. Okay, so please, fantastic. Okay, guys, go to your rooms, please. It's 6:20. Let's have this activity for at least 15 to 20 minutes so that you can have the chance to actually practice your speaking. And after that time, we're gonna come back, have a little debriefing about this, and then we're gonna go to speak to reading part 1 and use of English part 2. Please, Lucila, Carla, Laura, Fabiana, go to, oh no, sorry. Carla, Lucia, Macarena, Ana, Lucila, and Julia, Yanela, please go to your breakout rooms and open the activity that I asked you. Thank you, Macarena.
In the other class, no, we speak the other class, I think. What
Yes.
Lucia says, I don't.
Yes, do you have
Lucia
it?
is writing something.
Yes, Macarena, Carla,
Yeah,
Lucia?
I will share my screen. Yes, I will share my screen. I'm
Don't worry,
sorry.
Lucia, I understand.
Ah,
It's part of the
okay.
process. Now, remember, in here you're gonna find parts 3 and 4, so let's try to concentrate on 4. So that's part 3. Go scroll down. Those, I mean, these are the questions that you have to discuss about part 4. Okay. So what advances in transportation, etc., etc. So don't try to do part 3 and part 4 together because you are not going to have much time. Just try to concentrate on this. Or if you allow my recommendation, you can come down, scroll down all the way down,
All the way
down.
Okay.
Yes. If you
The
want to,
internet is pretty bad.
okay,
This.
that's gonna be easier, perhaps. I mean, easier in terms of looking at all the questions at once.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we could try doing this first and
Yes,
then.
of course. Yes, you can try me, but I believe this is gonna be easier. Okay, one of you has to be the interlocutor, and this person is gonna ask the questions for 5 minutes, and he's gonna listen. This person is gonna listen, and also is gonna provide feedback later. Then you swap. So that's why I'm giving you 15 minutes, so that all of you can have the chance to participate for 5 minutes, and let's say I'll receive feedback. Now, who's gonna be the examiner? And who's gonna be the candidates?
I can be the examiner. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, Macarena is going to be the examiner. Then Carla and Lucia, you are going to be the candidate. So, Macarena, remember time 5 minutes. Time 5 minutes. So, I mean, so that the whole activity should take 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Okay. Okay, but Lucia doesn't have the microphone. I think. I don't know.
Okay.
She wrote something.
Okay.
I have problems.
She wrote that she has problem with the internet. You can't participate. Okay, you have problem with the internet. Okay. Okay. Then let's try to do something. Okay. Then Carla, Macarena, try to have a conversation on your own. And Lucia, if possible, try to write some kind of feedback in the chat so that you can also benefit from the activity. Okay. Is that okay? Okay. So that's
maybe she could be the interlocutor.
No, I mean, maybe Macarena, you can still be the interlocutor.
Okay.
You can ask the questions, but Lucia can give you the feedback. That's what I mean. Right.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so let's try to work it out. I'll be back. Yes.
Yes. Hi. Where we can find the thing?
UDEP virtual.
Okay.
UDEP virtual. Further materials. Speaking part 4.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So could you share your screen, or can anyone share the screen, please, with the activities?
Do you can? I can't.
Okay, one of you can do it. I mean, any of you can do it. Als, Yanela, could you?
I can do it, but teacher, I don't know where is like the PDF.
Okay, I'm gonna show it to you. Okay, where's?
I am in the virtual, but I can't find it.
No, it's further materials, Arls. Further materials.
Further materials.
UDEP virtual, further materials. C1 advanced speaking part 4. It's something like that. It's a PDF document. Okay. C1 speaking part 4. please look at my screen. Here it is, further materials, C1 speaking part 4. You find it? Guys, Fabiana, Alice, Yanela,
Yes.
you find it? Okay, could you share your screen?
I have it now, teacher. I will share my screen.
Okay, please, Ars, thank you very much. There you are. Thank you. I mean, could you make it? Okay, it's a little bit. There you are. Fantastic. So scroll down. So you have, as you saw last class, you have lots of questions there. I mean, concentrate on the questions for part 4. Go down, scroll down. Okay, there are questions there for part 4. Scroll down a little bit. There you are. For example, there. Okay, how effective are, etc., etc., etc. Those are questions for part 4. Or if you want to make it easier, scroll down, all the way down. Down, 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 down. There you have all the questions. Okay, I think that structure is going to be easier for you. Okay, so one of you can be the interlocutor and ask the question and track the time, 5 minutes, and the other two will have that time to have the discussion, and then the person who was the interlocutor is going to provide feedback, and then you're going to swap. Okay, guys, that's what you have to do.
Teacher,
Okay.
Yes, Janela. Okay, tell me.
Teacher, how much time did you say that each participant must?
Okay, let's suppose that Fabiana asks the questions and you, Alsa, and Janela have to speak. So Fabiana is going to time 5 minutes. So Fabiana is going to ask the questions that are there, and you're going to have 5 minutes to answer the questions there. It's not that you have to answer all the questions. I mean, all the questions you can answer for 5 minutes. After that, Fabiana is going to give you feedback. After that, after the feedback, then let's suppose you ask the questions, a different set of questions, and Fabiana and Janela speak. And at the end of 5 minutes, you provide feedback, and like that. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, then. Let's ask, could you make the questions bigger? Because can't see.
Teacher, I have a question.
Yes,
Each question is for each person, or it's like to, I don't know, today
It's to
we
have a
to talk.
discussion.
Okay.
It's to have a discussion. For example, I can say, for example, Fabiana and Ars, what is the advantage of keeping fit with friends? So you have the conversation. You have a conversation, and Janela, in this case, tracks the time. Okay, you have the conversation. It's an example. It's an example. Then you continue working. Until Janela tracks 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, Janela, you give, okay, Als, blah, 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 Fabiana, blah, 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 blah. Your feedback. Thank you. Then you swap. Someone else is going to ask the question, and Janela has her chance to participate in the conversation.
Okay, I can be the interlocutor.
You decide.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to leave you, so I'm going to be back in perhaps 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
actually, because if you don't feel motivated of what you need to do, it's kind of difficult to get used to what to the job that you have actually, right?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Anna, some people say that working in the same place for a long time causes demotivation. Do you agree?
Well, I would say that, yeah, I totally agree with that statement, with that assertion, because nowadays people work in office, at the office, and they work, I mean, they have huge workloads, and they cause really demotivation because they are just sit there the whole day. They don't have, time to, to catch up with, with their friends, or maybe with,
Yeah.
with play it
Thank
out.
you.
All right.
So now you have to discuss about this question. In sports, discipline is more important than motivation. What do you think about this?
Okay, Laura, let me stop you there. And remember that,
Yeah.
okay, in this case, Anna answered the question, but did you ask for Lucila's opinion?
No, I haven't.
So remember,
Oh.
in the real exam, the interlocutor is going to ask you the question. For example, this is an example. Laura, how important is it to learn to motivate ourselves? Okay, then you answer the question,
Okay.
and then I say, okay, Lucila, what do you think? So Lucila is gonna give her opinion about that question based on her thoughts and your ideas, and perhaps the ideas
Okay.
that you discussed in part 3. Because remember, these questions are related to what you saw in part 3. That's when it's gonna happen. Then the situation goes in the other way. Then I asked Lucila the second question. Okay, Lucila, some people say that working in the same place for a long time causes demotivation. Do you agree? Okay, Lucila states her point of view, and then I, as an interlocutor, say, okay, Lara, what do you think? Give me your thoughts. And then after you had your chance to, let's say, to talk, then comes the discussion. And I say, Laura and Lucila, in sports, discipline is more important than motivation. What do you think about this? And then that's where you have the discussion.
Okay. Teacher,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
For example, in the second question, which is quite long, what if I am the second one and they are asking my opinion? And what if I don't catch the whole sentence at first? Can I say to you, can you repeat it, please, or something like
Sure.
that?
Yes, of course. Yes. Remember, I mean, the interlocutor is not going to explain the question, but he can, for sure, repeat the question. And actually, that's a technique that probably candidates make. I mean, because that, I mean, in the repeating of the question, obviously you win some time to think. So
And the
whenever,
time is counted in the 30 seconds you have to answer, or no, it's not counted?
I'm sorry?
The time that the examiner spent telling you the question again, it's zooming to your 30 seconds of answer?
No. I mean, it doesn't add anything.
Okay.
I mean, it adds to the whole exam, but it doesn't add more time to your 30 seconds. So don't worry about that. Besides, it's perhaps 5 seconds, no more. So it's not something big. So relax. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, teacher. So again, with the discussion, maybe Anna and Lucila, in sports, okay, you have 1 minute to discuss about this. In sports, discipline is more important than motivation. What do you think about this?
All right. Lucia, would you mind if I start first?
Sure.
All right. So I believe that discipline is mandatory and it's a must. I mean, when it comes to sports, because in that way, I mean, the team, or I mean, the player can, I mean, have like, can prepare like, I don't know, their schedule or something, I mean, to prepare themselves, yeah, to win. I don't know, what do you think?
I can say that you have a point there, but I am sure both are important. In first place, I would place discipline, because an everyday exercise actually is basic, but also motivation. Because if you don't feel motivated, then doing it is even more difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Don't you
Yeah,
think?
totally. I think that
Teacher,
both.
sorry.
Yes.
Teacher, this discussion is only 1 minute, or do I have to answer another?
I mean, obviously, I mean, and actually that's a good question. I mean, the interlocutor is not gonna cut the conversation.
Okay.
But it is the candidates who should know more or less that this should, let's say, be about a minute. I'm not saying, I mean, an exact minute. It could be a minute 10, a minute 20, but I try not to make it too long. That's my point. The interlocutor is not gonna say thank you, and he's not gonna interrupt you. If you are gonna follow the conversation for 5 minutes for the rest of the time, he's gonna let you talk. But try not to, because it's gonna be like, I mean, going over the same topic, because the question obviously is not gonna, I mean, let's say, you're gonna invent things just to keep answering the
Yes.
question. So just if you feel that the question is like about to finish, then cut it out, cut it. I mean, the examiners,
Yes.
and then just ask the next question.
So right now, do I have to answer? Do I have to ask another one to them?
Okay, now did the 5 minutes finished? The whole 5 minutes finished?
No.
Okay, then you have to ask one more question. Now remember also that after you ask the question, you have to feedback to Lucila and Ana, and then you swap, so that you can actually participate as an interlocutor. Yes?
Cesar,
Yes,
one
Lucila.
question. It is the first question, then ask for opinion, then the second one ask for the other person's opinion, then the discussion, and then it finished.
I mean, you can have 2 questions
5
for
minutes
discussion.
in that.
Yes, you can have 2 minutes for discussion.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, you can discuss the 2 questions. In the end, it depends on you. So the examiners have like 6 questions all the time. So you can answer all the 6 questions. Some examiners ask you just 4 questions. Some examiners ask you for the opinion, and then he asks you 1 question so that you can have the whole discussion for 3 minutes. So it's actually pretty, let's say, that's what I said, expect the unexpected, because many things can happen in part 4.
Okay, but more or less.
I mean, let's say 9 out of 10 speaking examiners follow the organization I just told you. Question, opinion, discussion, discussion. That's what pretty much is. But as I said, you never know. Okay?
Okay, teacher. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Thank you, teacher.
You?
Okay.
Okay,
I don't know
well.
if you want.
You need to try to find all the things that matter to you in order to know what you want to achieve. I got scared, sir. Sorry, I always get scared. Okay.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm ugly. What can I say?
Okay. Okay, Macarena.
I mean, that's how my mommy made me. So what can I do? Sorry.
Yeah, but
Okay. Okay, guys. Sorry for the sudden interruption. And well, I could see that you are on your own because, I mean, unfortunately, I believe it was Lucia who had
yes.
So if you don't mind, I can help you. I can ask you the questions and you can discuss.
Okay.
Okay,
Could you scroll down, please, a little bit, so that we can have a different set of questions? Okay, fantastic. Okay, that's it. Okay, any.
Here? Okay.
Yeah, any, whenever you. Okay, I'm gonna start. So that I'm gonna track my time so that we can have an actual experience. Okay, let's see. Carla, being a football player is not as glamorous as it looks like. Do you agree with this idea?
Yes, I do agree because most football players get involved in drugs and they don't have like nice lives. They need to pay for all their mistakes. They spend a lot of money in things that are not valuable. They spend their money in parties or women, and that's not what is that is not good for life, I guess.
Thank you. Macarena, what do you think?
I have to disagree in some kind of points. I think that not as glamorous as it looks like. I think that it could be glamorous because they have a lot of money. They win a lot of money. So they can buy a lot of cars that are expensive or jewelry and all those kind of things. So in my case, I think that I might disagree with her, with Carla, because yes, the football players can spend a lot of money in parties and drugs and that kind of things, but it's really, really important the money that they spend doing with those things. Some people, some football players, may help for uh, another causes like helping uh, children or animals. So it depends on the football player, I think. But
Thank
I
you.
might disagree with Carla, I think.
Thank you. Macarena, some people say that technology will eventually replace teachers. What do you think?
Okay, I think that well, technology is a really helpful, but not so much when it's teaching. I think that the teacher can be replaced with any technology. The teacher is like a person who can understand another person. Sometimes we have a lot of problems, and the teacher can understand those. But a machine cannot replace that. It's really difficult to replace the teaching part. For example, with the speaking, when we have to talk with someone, it's kind of difficult for me thinking that the technology will eventually replace teachers.
Thank you. Carla, what do you think?
Well, I do not think so. I mean, I don't think that technology will replace teachers because humans need like social contact. They want to be heard always, and a machine cannot empathize with you, and it cannot understand your feelings. And while learning something, we always want to be heard, and we want to be treated as the other person is understanding what we feel. It's not only teaching is not only about transmitting knowledge, it's also about knowing each person and knowing what each person has in their hearts. So
Thank you.
that's my point of
Uh,
view.
Carla and Macarena, some people say that politics has changed for the worse. What do you say about this? All together. Carla,
I
Macarena?
didn't listen. My internet, I'm so sorry.
Well,
Okay,
I think I can
okay.
start.
Okay, I'll repeat the question just in case.
Sure.
Carla, Macarena, some people say that politics has changed for the worse. What do you think about this? Or what do you say about this? Discuss.
Well, I don't know too much about politics. I'm not very interested about that. I've just followed this Biden Trump election, and that's all. And I care when elections in Peru are approaching, and I don't know too much about politics. I wouldn't say it's changing for the worse. I would say it's just like always.
I'm sorry, my
It's just
internet.
like always.
I don't know if you listen to me. My
Yes,
internet is
yes,
pretty.
yes, 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 Macarena.
So I listened like the last
Don't worry, go
question.
ahead. Miss, state your opinion about the question.
Okay. Well, I think that politics has changed for the worse. Sometimes, well, since we know that we get to the government, the republic, there has been a lot of problems like corruption and those kind of things. But nowadays, I think that technology may help to get them worse. For example, we can have more problems with another countries, maybe because we can get in contact for free actually, because the technology can get into a chat and speak to another people. So maybe the politics and the politicians can get more corrupted than before. What do you think, Carla?
Well, corruption has been always there. I I don't know if it has changed in some point of the history. I don't think it's going to change soon because ignorance is everywhere in all the world and it's like a virus that is infecting our minds.
Okay,
So
thank you.
unless
That is the end of the test. Okay, so pretty much what I have to say is that I am quite happy with what I could listen, even though there we had some technical issues regarding to Magarena's connection. It was quite clear that you were able to express yourself easily. You didn't have much hesitation in your performances. Now, my only recommend, okay, obviously it was because of the connection. Try to interact more in the discussion because
Yeah, teacher,
yeah,
at
I
first
understand.
I was about to say, would you mind if I begin? And when I heard Carla talking, like finishing to talk, like I thought that it was my internet. So sorry.
No, no, it's okay. It's okay. So, but I mean, in real life, well, not in real life, but in the real situation, I mean, try to use your partner more in terms of asking questions. And I mean, remember, when it's a discussion, so try to have
okay.
your interactions short and try to engage with your partner because you had your time to expand yourself in the first question. In the second section, that is the
Oh,
discussion, it's actually taking, I mean, and give and take, so that you can actually have a full discussion.
okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you may want to, I mean, we still have 5 minutes, so try to practice one more question. Will I go to the last group so that we can have a debriefing later?
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
teacher.
Thank you.
Money to do to spend a good holiday.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so some people stay with child too much these days and shouldn't go on so many holidays. What do you think?
Do you mind if I start?
Oh, start.
What I would say is that this is subjective because nowadays that the technology it's everywhere. Maybe it's not so necessary to go outside in order to know the world. There are people that just see the world through the social media like Instagram, Facebook, those kind of medias. They don't travel too much. So maybe what I would like to add here is that maybe what people have to do is like travel more and know the space where they live because for example there are many people that live here in Peru and they do not know Cusco and it's like one of the seven marvels of the world and that's very sad, you know.
Well, I agree. People should spend more time to travel and know other places, and it's important to know your country and also other countries, not just by the phone and pictures like Instagram or something, but be physically there in the place is very comfortable.
Okay. Do you think people have enough time for holidays these days? Why or why not?
May I start?
Of course.
Well, in these days, I think mm, the problem is not the time, is the pandemic that we are living nowadays. Like people can go out to the beach on the weekends, and they are very they are very stressful. And well, I think is not the time. Is is the days we are living that can, well, I don't know, that don't allow to go outside.
Okay, well, I would like to like take out the statements of the present context, and I would say like in the last decades, uh, most of the people like they didn't go too much to holidays because they they like all the things to be very fast since the way of thinking it's fit by the capitalists and also the consumers. Uh, all what they do is just maybe maybe, I don't know, one day to a very special place and that's it. It's not nowadays like too traditional to go to a holiday for a very long time.
Okay.
Okay, I agree.
Thank you very much for that. We're gonna go back to the main session in a couple of minutes. But from what I could listen, I'm sorry, Fabiana. Sorry, you were the interlocutor. Sorry. I mean, do you have any feedback?
Yes, yes, I was about to say that
Sorry, my bad.
both
My bad.
of you. No, no.
Sorry.
No, I was about to say that both of you did it pretty well and did it better than the previous one of each one. So I think you, with practice, like if you keep practicing talking, you talk better. And well, an improvement that both of you could make is like the muletillas. I don't know how to say it, but
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, like. I mean, that's an effect of,
Yeah,
of, too,
that's-
much,
That's
of too many
my
sitcoms.
leitmotiv. Yes, my
Yeah, it's like, I mean, watching too many sitcoms. I mean, people in real life tend to speak like that. I don't remember the word for muletillas. I have it in the tip of my tongue. I forgot.
Fillers.
Yes, thank you very much. Fillers. They are
Fillers.
fillers. Yes. Well, that's pretty much practice. But on top of that, I have some comments to make. Actually, I'm quite happy to with what I could listen. Now, my only advice would be try not to make the discussion too long in terms of Ars and Janela in the discussion. Your interventions were quite long. So try to have
Yes.
shorter
Yeah.
participations, personal participations, and try to engage more in the discussion. Because remember, you had the time to
Okay.
express your to expand in the first questions.
So it's
have to
like a conversation, maybe. Like
Yes,
I
actually,
talk, then
yes,
she talks,
exactly.
then I talk.
It's
Okay,
a
okay.
conversation. It's like, okay, you go now, I go first. No, I don't agree with you, or something like that. Because if you are like too polite in terms of, okay, you go first, and then you speak for 40 seconds, and then they speak for 40 seconds, it's like acting, and this is not a
Yes.
play. So it's like a conversation. So have it as a conversation, okay? That would be my only advice.
Yeah,
Because in terms of
I
language and
also
stuff, great.
Yeah, I also saw that, and with me, of course, like each person talks like 40 seconds, and then we pass to the other question. So we don't make like a fluent conversation.
Exactly. And remember, the name of this activity is discussion. So there has to be some kind of discussion. So have that in your mind. There is a discussion. I mean, it's not a fighting. It's not a fight. It's a discussion. Okay? Okay, guys, we're gonna go back to the
So
main
it's
session.
more
Yes.
it's more talking than say our point of view.
Remember,
more discussed with
it's
other
like a mix. So you need to find the balance between giving your opinion, but having your opinion shared with the other person. You know what I mean? So it's like
Okay.
it's not
Yes.
monologue. That's what I said at the beginning. Try not to have monologues. And that is
Okay.
the thing. Your monologue is in the first question. In the third or fourth question, it's not a monologue because you're working with someone else. So try to shorten your participations and engage more in the discussion.
Okay. Thanks.
No, thank you. And we're gonna go back to the main session to continue. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, thank you very much for coming back to the main session. And actually, I have to say that it was quite an enriching activity. And just some recommendations, in general. Remember, please, that this is a discussion. So, yes, so this is a discussion. So try not to engage too much in the monologue way in the second section of the activity, because that's what pretty much happened. I'm saying that you have to argue. You don't need to have an argument just to have a give and take. You just have to, be aware that the more you get engaged in the discussion, the better you're going to score. Remember, the more you engage in the discussion, the better you're going to score. Because if you want to go just for the monologues, then you might earn some points in discourse management, but you are not going to get enough points in interactive communication. And remember, the core of this section is interactive communication. Okay, so keep that in mind. I don't know if you have any questions related to this part before going to working the last, reading part 1 and use of English part 2. No questions? Okay, fine. Thank you very much for that. Now, let's go to speaking part, use of English part 1, reading part 1 and use of English part 2. Now, I usually tend to take these to leave these for the final sections of the class and for the final classes, because as I said at the beginning, there is nothing much to teaching here, because I cannot teach you or I cannot tell you how to use a dictionary or how to find the exact grammar word or the exact lexical word that you need. This is either you know the word or you don't know the word. This is either you know the grammar, you don't know the grammar. You know the phrasal verb or you don't know the phrasal verb. So that's pretty much it. Now, obviously, there are some recommendations that we might provide, but that's pretty much what they are, recommendations. Because, as I said before, if you don't have a strong vocabulary, let's say, basis, or you don't have a strong grammar, then you might not score well in this exam, even if you have a technique. So that's why I do recommend to have not to spend more than 10 minutes in the 2 sections. And you listen correctly. Try not to spend more than 10 minutes in both of the activities. Because, as I said, it makes no point in trying to find the correct answer if you actually don't know the answer. So it would be a waste of time trying to play the Think Marine Doping way for the correct answer. So you know it, go for it. You don't know it, circle something and carry on. And just to clarify some things, so part 1 is pretty much a reading passage which has 8 gaps. And those gaps must be completed with only one alternative which appears in the bottom of the activity. Well, not pretty much in the bottom, but it could be right next to it. But it's only one correct answer. Obviously, and I believe you have some experience with the FCE or the V2 preliminary, V2 first. The alternatives are pretty much similar, not the same, they are similar. But obviously, there is only one correct answer based on the complexity of the text, 1, 2, on the context of the neighboring words, 2, and 3, if the word is part of a particular fixed expression or a phrasal verb. So you have to know your phrasal verbs or fixed expressions very well before coming to this particular section. Now, obviously, you can see that there are 8 questions, and this is what you get for each question, 1 mark. So, since you have 1 mark for each question, you have 8 points. So, let's remember something. Part 5, 12 points. Part 6, 8 points, that makes 20. Part 7, 12 points, that makes 32. Part 8 makes 10 points, that makes 42. Plus these 8 points makes 50. So the reading component of the C1 Advanced is worth 50 points. In order for you to pass the C1 Advanced reading component, you must get at least 27. So let's go for it again. Part 1, 8 points. Part 2, 12 points. Part 6, 8 points. That makes 8 plus 12, 20. Plus 8, 28. Part 7, 12 points, 28, 58, 38, 40, plus 10 points in part 8 makes 50. So, and your magic number, let's say it's 27, 28. If you score more than 28 points in the reading component, you are there. And if you score 23, 22, you are close, but you are not still there. It's like Biden, Trump. You're close, but not there. Okay, so that's pretty much what we are gonna do here. Now, how do you attack this particular section? How do you start working this? And for that, let me share my screen, because we're gonna go to the first activity, and actually that's something I recommend you to do. Please go to the virtual and please have this activity with you. And let me share my screen. Go to UDE Virtual, okay. Go to the virtual, go to the reading section, and in the reading section, you're gonna find this handout, session 13, reading part 1. And this is what you're going to find, I'm sorry. There it is. So as you can see, this is the mysterious isle. So, okay, so this is the exercise. So how do you start with this? So these are in this case, you have the text in there, and you have the 8 alternatives here. So how do you start this particular section? What do you do? Nothing?
Read all the text.
Okay, and why is that?
Teacher, you need maybe to analyze if it's a noun, an adverb, or not, or maybe I'm confusing.
Okay, let's try to have some ideas first before going to the actual technique. Well, not technique, recommendation. Okay, so I don't know if it was Carla, I believe, who said that you have to read the text.
No, Yanela.
Oh, Yanela. Okay, but I didn't see the name. Thank you. Okay, Yanela. But anyway, why is that? Why do you think that works? That'll work.
To know the context of the text.
Fantastic. Okay, so and actually that's pretty much the first advice I give you. So try to read the whole text first to get the context. Obviously, you are not going to do it in detail. You're just gonna make it quite quick. Okay, after reading the whole text, what do you do? Okay, you read it, you have an idea. What else?
What Arl said, if it's a noun or an adjective. And that.
Okay, does anyone have any other idea about this? So Arls and Yanela say that you should try to locate if it's a noun, a verb, an adjective. So the part of the speech, sorry, that is needed. And actually, that's not a bad idea. But actually, I would like to complement that by saying that after you read the text, you try to complete it by yourself. So by reading the text, you may have a pretty much idea of the word that you need. I mean, if you want, you can analyze that part of a speech. It's not actually necessary in here. We said that in part 3 and part 4 it is more than necessary, especially part 3. But in here it's not quite necessary. But my recommendation would be try to give or try to answer or try to fill the gap with one word or with as many words as possible without looking at the alternatives. So in this case, let's try to complete it with our, together. So in the early morning, etc., the most powerful storm, okay, let's put it here, for the decade, blah, 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 with wind speeds in, number 1 could be, what would you say? So do not look at the alternatives, just try to complete it. In about, could be in about of.
In terms of.
In first of, remember you have to, okay, first of, first. I'm just gonna write whatever you tell me, well, first.
No, terms.
In terms, sorry, in terms. Could it be in average? In average of? In average of, perhaps? Anything else? So let's leave it there. So it's only 2 words, perhaps. Okay, so eat flattened forests. Okay, obviously we need a verb in here. Yes. Down. It what?
Get down, pull down.
Get down. Could it be okay? Get down or got down? Perhaps fast. Because it's 2019. Got down. Just power lines. Could it be put down or brought down? So, and that's what pretty much you have to do. So very quickly, because you don't have to think too much about this, try to think about the possible alternatives that you may think of without looking at the alternatives. Why? As I said before, the alternatives are distractors. So first of all, you try to finish or to fill all the gaps with your own idea, because somehow you have an idea of what should go in there. So sometimes you even know the word, even if you haven't looked at the alternatives. So try to go for the word first, and then when you have all your possible alternatives there, go for the alternatives. And if your alternative is, let's say, if you find your alternative, in the given choices, then go for it. I mean, obviously, after you go for your alternative, try to see if it actually fits. Maybe grammatically it fits, but in context it doesn't, or maybe in formality it doesn't. But at least you have a starting point. Okay, let's try to complete this quickly. 7 miles out of the sea at the meets the estuary, perhaps at the point, perhaps at the, what else? At the, I would pretty much eat at the point.
Yeah.
Let's try, yes,
At
the
the edge.
At the edge, perhaps. Okay, fine. At the edge. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. A small island hat. Okay, obviously it's a verb. Hat.
Round out.
Round out. Rounded would be rounded out. I don't know. Let's say emerged, perhaps. Emerged, perhaps. Emerged. Or have, I don't know, appeared or not appeared out. That's obviously, that's what I say. Try to, I mean, if you have, let's say, if you know that it's a phrasal verb, try to think about all the possible phrasal verbs that you may think. Okay, let's leave it there. Okay, Local soon gave it the name of the journal. Was remarkable. Okay, its sudden apparition. What was so remarkable? What? About, perhaps, about sudden apparition. Could it, I mean, since we have a comma here, maybe it's a contrast. We could say besides.
However.
However, okay, but are we okay? However, yes. However, let's put it there. However, about, besides, however, in spite of, perhaps. In spite of, perhaps. Okay. The fact that the island, again, intact, that would be place for a verb.
Was.
Was, okay. Stayed, could it be? Stayed intact. So, as I said, maybe it could be these words, or perhaps it could be synonyms of these words. Okay? Stayed, remain, could it be? Remember, since this is an advanced examination, try to look for, let's say, less common verbs in order to fill this exercise. Okay, that would be 6. It could well become a permanent what? A permanent thing?
Situation.
Situation.
A statement.
Say, sorry?
A statement.
A statement, okay. Statement, maybe permanent characteristic. Characteristic. Landmark could be, or landform, why not? Etc. Okay. Last but not least, or last one. Okay, scientists quickly realized that the island appearance could it be maybe was or appearance, or could it be provided? Etc.
Gave.
Gave, okay, why not? Yes, gave, provided, was, etc. Okay, so this is what we could do. This is what we should do. So before going to the actual alternatives, let's try to complete it with on our own. Okay, now we go to the alternatives. And as I said before, if you find the alternatives, the word that you wrote in the alternatives, go for it. I mean, just tick the word and go for it. But you may say, Cesar, what if I don't find the word that, I don't find a word that I included? Okay, let's go there in a moment. But let's try to see if we got first here, terms, average, no, okay. Got, put, brought, okay, number 2. Okay, we got brought. And now, if I find my answer here, then I try to compare, I try to say why the other answers are not possible. So it's like, prove it wrong. So I wrote brought, I think that's the answer. So let's try to confirm this answer by applying that prove it wrong technique. So why fetch, carried, or send would not be correct answers for number 2. And I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so you can see it. Okay, so, okay, eat, flattened forest, fetch down, carried down, sent down. Do they make sense? Do they make sense or not? Guys?
Can you repeat what you just said, teacher?
Okay,
Yes.
so eat flattened forest, down. So in our options, we wrote brought, and brought is here. So that would be pretty much an answer. But in order to confirm that that is the answer, we have to, let's say, prove that fetched, carried, and sent are not the correct answer. So fetch, down, does it make sense? Not quite.
No.
Carried down,
No.
I mean, for the context, it doesn't make any sense. And sent down power lines? No. So the only possible answer for this, and an answer that I consider, was brought. So that's why the answer for this is B. So the answer for this is B. And that's what I have to do. So I continue. Number 3, point, edge. Okay, I put point. So let's see. 3, at the scene where the Atlantic Ocean meets. Mark is, I mean, could it, mark and point could be similar. A stage where doesn't make any sense. So, and that's something I also recommend. Whenever you find answers that do not fit, eliminate them right away. So you know that you have only 2 possibilities. So between mark and point, which could be the answer? Mark and point, what's the difference?
Point.
Okay, but what's the difference? Because contextually, I might say that mark could also work, but why not? And actually, this is the tricky part in this particular section. I mean, why do I have to choose this word in spite of the other? What is the difference between mark and point?
Point is like for a place.
Okay.
Where is near. And mark
okay, point
like,
is mostly
I know
used
it's
in
like
geographical
a point,
terms.
but another. I know.
So, okay, let me help you. Okay, point is pretty much used in geographical terms. Why not? And mark is something that we pretty much have on something. a mark on your t-shirt or a mark on your notebook or something, but it's not something that you could use for geographical purposes. So in this case, the answer for number 3 would be D. And like that. So this is how we should attack this part, by first trying to put what I know and then comparing what I know with the alternatives so that I can actually see if my guess is there. If my guess is there, I try to prove it wrong. So I have to convince myself that the others are not good choices. If I don't find my choice, then I start testing the alternatives to discriminate which are definitely wrong. Definitely wrong. And when I have just 2 left, my choice, and this is something important, has to go always for the most complex one or the more formal one. Why? Because this is an advanced examination. And since this is an advanced examination, we don't expect you guys to use, let's say, basic language. We expect you guys to use, let's say, advanced language. So you may have 2 words that are similar in meaning. And if you have that case, always go for the one of those 2, which is more formal. Now, if we put it in context, mark and point, they pretty much have the same idea. And they could go here. But since point is more devoted to grammatical explanations, obviously more formal, that is the one that goes here in the case of number 3. If we go for number 4, let's see, River Gironde, a small island had, okay, rounded, emerged. Okay, we don't have rounded and emerged, but we have risen, grown, lifted, and surfaced.
So it will be recent, teacher, that it will
recent,
be the most.
like Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
Like Jesus?
Surface.
Okay, surfaced. Do we have actually surfaced? Okay, perhaps. Okay, why not grown? I mean, an island can grow.
No.
No, islands cannot grow. So
No.
grow is eliminated. Grown is eliminated. Lifted. I mean, what is the meaning of lift? Lift is we take up. I mean, you take something up. You lift something. So you don't lift an island. So that is eliminated. So if it's not risen, grown, and lifted, the only one that is left is
Surface.
so now, number 4 is D. And that is the analysis that we have to make to work this particular section. Okay. Now let's try to work this quickly so that I can give you the chance to go for exercise 2. Okay. Let's try to work it down. Number 5. We said about, besides, however, in spite of. That was so remarkable. 5. In spite of, apart from, interesting. Look, we put in spite of, but if you think it carefully, apart from also works. So what would be the difference? And actually,
The
it's really subtle
advanced
difference.
language.
Language, okay, and what would be the reason? Okay, what kind of word do you have after a preposition? After a preposition, when you write a verb, the verb has to be in a particular form.
With ing.
ing. Okay, fantastic. So do we have an ing form in here?
No.
No. So instead of, I mean, we are not comparing in here. An account of, that would be the same question, the same problem. So the only one that doesn't have problems of those problems would be apart from. What's so remarkable? Apart from, letter C, etc. Okay, let's try to finish with 6, 7, and 8. Okay, what's the fact that the island, remained. We have remained in here, we have remained in here. So let's try to convince ourselves. Prolonged, what is the meaning of prolonged? To expand. Doesn't make any sense. To reside means to live. I mean, a synonym of living. Doesn't make any sense. Persevered. Does it make sense? Not quite. So the only one possible.
Yes.
Remind.
Remained. He. 7. It could well become a permanent. Okay. Thing, situation, statement, characteristic, landform. Okay. We don't have any. So let's see. Item. I mean, an island is an item?
Not exactly.
No.
Not exactly. I mean, issue. I mean, an island is an issue. I mean, an issue would be similar to a problem. Is it a problem?
Yeah, no.
Not in the context. Okay, matter, a permanent matter. I mean, matter would be similar to a problem.
Problem.
So, feature, what is a feature? If you think it carefully, a feature is a
thing.
It's a characteristic.
Characteristic.
A feature is a synonym of characteristic. But what is the difference? Feature is more complex. Feature is more formal. Characteristic is less formal and feature is more formal. So in this case, it is a synonym of characteristic, which is feature. D. Last but not least, the last one. Scientists quickly realized that the island appearance was provided gave. Okay.
Offered.
What would be a synonym of provide or gave?
Offered.
Offered. And the answer is
Offered.
D. And that's pretty much how you have to work. And that is the suggestion, to work type exercise reading one exercise. First of all, complete the gaps with your own ideas. Pretty much 3 or 4 words. Once you have that finished, go for the alternatives. If you find your your answer within the alternatives, go for it. But before giving the final answer, prove the other alternatives wrong. So use the prove wrong approach. If your answer is not there, then start discriminating the answers, the alternatives which completely sure are not the answer. So start by discriminating the ones that are not answers by any means. So when you have the ones that are left, then always go for the one that is more complex, more formal, or less common, because this is the nature of the exam, because it's an advanced examination. Now, if you found a synonym of a word that you put here, like we found, for example, in number 8, like gave or provided, and it was offered. So look always for synonyms, okay? But never leave an unanswered, let's say, question, okay? Do you have any questions about this section? And obviously,
Teacher,
all these
I have a question.
in 5 minutes. Do not spend more than 5 minutes in this section of the exam. Yes, Arth.
For example, if we have two that are very similar, we should select like the more complex one.
The more complex,
right?
or the more formal one, depending on the context, obviously.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you will always have the possibility, okay, it's this or this. So let's say your tiebreaker is going to be formality. Always is going to be formality. The more, for example, which is more formal, feature or characteristic? Remember, we have that in exercise
Feature.
It was
Feature.
seven. Okay, which is more formal, feature or characteristic? Feature. But in the end, they mean the same. If you look in the dictionary, they mean the same. But in terms for the exam, feature is more formal. That's why we go for that one. But of course, if you cannot discriminate the meaning of words, then of course it's going to be quite difficult to work this. Now, this is what is going to happen. Please go now to exercise 2. I'm sorry. Let me. Okay, go for exercise 2, the Sea-sized artist. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Try to follow these, let's say, recommendations. And after 5 minutes, I'm going to give you the answers for this activity. Okay? If you have no questions, so it's 7:26. I'm going to give you until 7:31 to finish this particular activity. Okay? You have your 5 minutes, and if you are so kind, when you finish, write your answers in the chat box so that we can start comparing them right away. You have your 5 minutes. Okay, guys, we're gonna resume the class, well, the activity in less than 1 minute. So remember, the important thing here is not to stay too long in this particular section. Remember that it's knowledge. So in here, the best advice I can give you is to read. The more reading you have, the more reading you make, the better possibilities you have to spot differences between words or spot more formal ways to say things. And obviously, you can spot easily phrasal verbs or idiomatic expressions that can help you work in this particular section. Okay, so please, if you are so kind, and if you finished, please go ahead in the chat box and please write some answers so that we can compare your answers right away before going to part 2, which is pretty much the same. The only difference is that in this case, we don't have alternatives. We don't have any alternatives. We just have to, well, write what we think could be the right answer. Okay, let's see. Do I have any answers in the chat? Can I have some answers in the chat before showing the final answers in this part? Okay. So since it's already 7:33 and we don't have much time, I'm gonna show the answers right away so that you know which the answers are. And this is what we have. These are the answers for, for part exercise 2. Okay, thank you, Laura. I mean, you could check the answers in the screen. 1D, 2A, 3C, 4D, 5C, 6B, 7A, 8B. Those are the answers for that particular section. Obviously, do not panic if you don't get proper answers in here. But I consider, and this is a personal opinion, I consider it to be an easy section, an easy part of the exam, depending on your reading ability. If you, as I said, let's say, a person who reads a lot, who tends to read a lot, then your array of vocabulary is going to help you a lot in here because this is pretty much a vocabulary. Okay, so that would be my only recommendation. Obviously, you know that the remaining 3 exercises, 3 exercises that you have in the handout are for you. The answer key is going to appear right after we finish with the class. So that go for it and try to practice. Now, we're going to concentrate in section 2, in reading part 2, which is, as I said, similar, but not the same. Because in this particular case, we are not going to have any alternatives. We are going to have just the word. Sorry, the gap. Let me share my screen. Okay, here it is. So, okay, let me make it a little bit smaller. Okay, So this is what we have for part 2. So in this case, we don't have any clue. So we just have to carry it out. But in here, we are going to, or sorry, Cambridge and evaluate your grammar. So when the first part, it was pretty much vocabulary, this is pretty much grammar. And obviously, Cambridge is not gonna ask you for big words in this part. So it's gonna maybe ask you for just sections of phrasal verbs or particles, prepositions, fixed expressions. So don't try to complicate yourself with very, let's say, difficult words, or as a teacher used to say, beautiful words, because you are not gonna need them here. You are just going to need pretty much your knowledge of phrasal verbs, prepositions, collocations perhaps, etc. Okay, so my first recommendation here is, as Als mentioned before, what Als and I believe it was Janela mentioned before, it was going through the text quite quickly. Okay, I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. Oh, sorry, just for you to see this. Okay, fantastic. We can see everything. So try to go over the text and try to, in this case, highlight the word that comes before and after each gap. Okay? So that is gonna give you pretty much an idea of what you are going to need later. Okay, this is what I have to do first. So this is what I have. Fantastic. So obviously, by reading the text, by identifying what comes before and after the gap, I might have a clue of the kind of word that I need. Now, okay, let's try to break it down. So unless you're planning, etc., etc. Okay, there is no need to invest. Invest. Okay, if we have invest, we know that this is a verb, and we have here a noun, a full pair. A full pair is a whole noun. What could be here? So what kind of word could it be here? And that is the second thing that I have to do. Now I have to go in each gap trying to put the kind of word that I need. So what kind of word do I need? In this case would be what? A
preposition.
Fantastic. I need a preposition. So Cesar, can I start answering right now? My recommendation is try to analyze this first. So it's a preposition. Number 10. Compa binoculars are fine when comes. Okay, now this is another thing. If you are not sure, if you know let's say the expression, because in this case it's a fixed expression, go for it. In this case, number 10, when comes, what is the only word that can go in there? Because this is a fixed expression.
It.
Fantastic. The only answer in here is it. It's a fixed expression. When it comes down to etc., etc., etc. Fantastic. Okay, what's? I think this is what's some space. They are certainly easier to carry around. So compact binoculars are fine when it comes to general or purpose viewing in good light. What's? They are certainly easier to carry around. So by reading these, we can understand that this is another fixed expression, because this fixed expression that starts with what's adds something with the next idea. So what could be that expression? What's
about?
Nope, it has 4 letters. It has 4 letters and it starts with M. What's, and we use it to
more.
Thank you. Thank you. What's more, they're certainly easier to carry around. So these are fixed expressions, guys. So as you know, and in here there is nothing to teach. Either you know the expression or you don't know the expression. But by making the analysis, we can pretty much have narrowed down the options. Now, we can do that with some options, but we can, let's say, leave the other options, the options that are not fixed expressions, towards the end. Okay, everyone has own idea.
Their own.
Okay, since it's
Their
everyone,
it.
that is another fixed expression. Okay, sorry.
Their own.
Their
Their
their own.
own idea. Fantastic. Yeah, what makes binoculars? When you are considering, in this case, this is not a fixed expression. So when you're considering of the many brands and models, what do I need?
Verb.
A verb?
Verb.
Do I need a verb? But considering is the verb. What is this?
I was thinking consider taking of many, but
Okay, when you're considering, it's only one word.
taking of.
When you're considering taking, so let's try to work out the type of word first. When it is not a fixed expression that we can spot immediately, let's try to locate the type of word. So if it's a particle, it's a preposition, it's a quantifier perhaps. When you're considering,
Quantifier.
okay, it could be a quantifier, yes, because it's some of the many. Quantifier. Okay, let's leave it there. So we know that we need a quantifier. Okay, let's go back later. Okay, don't base your decision on price alone. A better idea
Is.
in that case, it's a verb because it has to pop. So this is, I mean, if you have here an infinitive, the only way to have an infinitive there is by having here a verb, is. That is another, it's not a fixed expression, but it's let's say it's a rule. Okay, so to your photograph store and store and those that fall within your price range at test run.
And make those.
For those.
Okay, to pop down to your local photographic and this could be a verb. So maybe we need a verb. Okay, we need a verb. Fine. And last but not least, okay. Look, you might like the look of a particular pair. You might not find the handling and doing position comfortable. So that is
a conditional.
It's a conditional, but it would be like a similarity or difference?
Very.
So could be like a conjunction. But what kind of conjunction? Perhaps, although you might like the look in a particular pair, you might not find the handling and moving position comfortable. Although that okay? Yes. So this is how we should like to work. This is how we should try to work this out. So first, we highlight what is before and after the gap. After I did that, I start looking first for idiomatic expressions. Whenever I find idiomatic expressions, and I know the answer because idiomatic expressions ask what they are, either phrasal verbs or fixed expressions, I go for them first. Believe me, in this exercise, you will always find at least 2 or 3 minimum fixed expressions, for sure. You will always find 2 or 3 answers that are right, let's say easy to spot. Now, once you finish with the fixed expressions, then you go for the next ones. And you haven't answered those, but those are, let's say, you have spotted the type of word or the word type that you need. Could it be either a preposition in number 9? Okay, where was the other one? It was, number 9, number 13, number, this is 15, okay, 9, 13, 15. So okay, let's try to break it down. So in here we don't have options, so we have to just work it out. So invest, and actually that's pretty much a phrasal verb. Invest. You invest something.
In.
Invest in or invest on?
On.
On.
Okay, let's put it there. Invest in or invest on. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna tell you the answer right away. Okay. So the other one, when you're considering quantifier.
Some.
Some, okay. Some of the many brands and models. What else? Some.
One of the many.
Okay, could it be one, perhaps? Yeah, some. When you consider one of the many brands and models on the market, fantastic. Why not? And last but not least, what the other one was, I believe. Okay, number 15. Okay, to pop down to your local photographic store and verb. It says those that fall within your price range, a test run. What is the meaning of test run? Test run.
Like an examination.
Examination, fantastic. And what could be a verb that is synonym to test run? That is, gives you the idea of test run that we need here. And what?
Try.
And try. And try. Okay, now since we have these, I'm going to show you the answers to see if we are somehow there. Aha, okay, let's see. Let's try to check. Aha. Where's my share screen? Here it is. Share screen. Okay. Let's see, number 9, invest in. Thank you very much. It was investing or invest on. It is investing. Number 10, eat. It's part of a fixed expression. Number 10 was part of a fixed expression. Number 10 was eat. What's more? Remember that is part that was part of a fixed expression too. What's more? 11. 12, there, his, her, depending on the possessive. Obviously, with that, everyone, I think was the word. Everyone there, or everything, their opinion or something like that. I don't remember the word. Which, determiner, and that's something that we have to consider too. Whenever you have to use the word that or a synonym of that, always go for the word which. Which is the, let's say, the more complex or the more formal way of saying that, or the synonym, that, those, etc. Okay? Which. Always go for the determiner which. 14 is, and actually that's pretty much what we said. 15, okay, so we said try, but if you have the word give is more formal. In more formal context, try and give, let's say try and give you the idea of giving something a test. But give it a try, I believe is the word. Let me check in here. I believe it's give it a try. It's and give.
Yes.
Give those that fall within your price a test run. Okay, give those, try those. Okay, so we made a mistake there. So in this case, is give. We didn't read the last part, and that's something that we have to remember too. Always read what comes after that given word. So it's not, even though it's a good idea to focus on the given word, try to read the whole thing so that you find yourself within the correct, let's say, context of the whole thing. And just to finish, number 8, and let me show it to you again, or number 16 in this case. Number 16 would be although. As I said, there are many possibilities there. Although, though, while, whilst, with a linker of contrast. Okay. Now, as I said, this is the the recommendations, the set of recommendations to work part one, which is related to reading, and part two, which is related to use of English. Now remember, use of English. Part two, 8 points. Part three, again, 8 points. And part four, depending on how well you do it, you can score a maximum of 12 points. In total, you have 30 points. So in order to pass the use of English exam, you need to score 16 to 17 points. And guess what? If you do well part two and part three, you don't need to do well part four. In other words, you can pass the use of English test just by doing part two and part three completely correct. So you can fail all part four and you can still pass the C1 advanced examination in the paper of use of English. Yes, that's what number says. That's what the mathematics says. So you don't even have to do well in part four. And remember something, you always have 1 point in part four. Because if you aim to work with the given word and you are able to, in some way, try to manipulate that word in order to give the correct answer, but you don't get it, it's still 1 point. If you're able to do that with the 6 sentences, you have 6 points. And if you do fairly well in these 2 parts, you pass the use of English exam. So do not panic the use of English exam. Do not panic, just concentrate on what you have to do. Make your analysis in part 2, make your analysis for the kind of word in part 3, and work your paraphrasing and your grammar and your contextual analysis for part 4, and you are there. So remember, 27 points for reading, 16 to 17 points for use of English. Those are your magic numbers. So Trump and Biden is 270 points. That's their magic number. Your magic number for reading is 27, and your magic number for use of English is 16 to 17. I would say 17 just to, to clarify the things. Okay, now I'm gonna give you, we have still 8 minutes. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to work the next exercise in this activity of use of English, unless you have a question. Do you have any questions about this part? Part 2. Do you have a question in here? No questions. Okay, so I'm gonna give you now 5 minutes. Again, it's 7:53. I'm gonna give you until 7:58 to work on this particular task, which is early stone tools. Go for it. Let's try to work on the way I ask you to do, and then I'm gonna show you the answers as soon as we finish. Okay, if you have no questions, then your 5 minutes will start right now. Please concentrate on finding let's say, the fixed expressions first, the collocations and the fixed expressions you need, and then try to work on your knowledge of the kind of word that you might need to fill each of the blanks. You have your 5 minutes. Okay, guys, it's 7:58. As we said, 5 minutes have passed, and let's give our answers to the second exercise for use of English part 2. Again, I saw an emoji of, let's say, of how can I say, of surprise when I said that you could pass the use of English exam even without doing well part 4. And actually that's true. If you put the numbers to the test, that's what it is. But of course, it depends on how well you handle parts 2 and 3. Obviously, that requires a lot of your knowledge, grammatical knowledge, and your lexical knowledge, but it is quite possible. So don't panic the use of English exam, because as you see, the numbers are there. The numbers are there at your reach, and it depends just on you to get the results you want. Okay. Now let me share my screen just for to finish with this. And as you can see, these are the answers. Number 9, make. Number 10, than. Number 11, after. Number 12, back. Number 13, to. Number 14, which, that, and obviously whenever you have the choice between the which and that, always go for which. Always go for which. Okay, now number 15, as, and number 16, in. Okay, that's what we have for exercise number 2. That's pretty much what we have for this part. And obviously the next answers that you have, the next exercises are for you to work at home in the remaining time. As soon as we finish with the class, we're gonna have the activity there, the answer key for you. Now, in UDEP Virtual, you're gonna find the writing assignment for the next week, which is the review. I want to see how well you do the review without working on the review or telling what the review is and stuff. I want to see how you do. Obviously, you can read the document, the PDF document that is in there, and also you can have the guidelines in there. Also, you can have the guidelines in UDEP Virtual. You have it there. But the first 15 to 20 minutes next class, we're gonna devote it to ourselves to work on the review. And the next part of the session will be a mock. Next week, we're gonna have a reading mock. And when I say reading mock, I mean parts 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And after that, we're gonna have a listening mock. So next week, we're gonna have the working of that review. The debriefing of the review, because you're gonna practice it over the week. And after that, we're gonna have a reading mock, parts 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and a listening mock, full mock, so that we can start putting our techniques and abilities into practice. I don't know if you have any questions before calling a night, because it's always, Friday, and it's always a nice time to relax ourselves a little bit after a quite exhausting and long week that we all have. Questions, recommendations, or remarks related to these particular sections of the exam? No questions. Okay, Carla says no questions. And actually, I really appreciate the effort, or your effort of being here. Thank you very much, guys, for the effort of enduring myself. Even though I might, freak out someone else out there, as I said, I'm sorry, that's who I am. What can I say? And that pretty much, that's what it is. Okay, thank you very much for always being there. It's always a pleasure. Take care and see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, teacher.
Thank you, teacher. Bye.
Bye.